we here? So it's been a long time since I shared a video, but it's something recently that I came across that I wanted to share with you guys and probably enhance your knowledge or help you if you are working on the same thing. So I started working on a AI chatbot recently, and my task was to test it out. And initially, I started testing it out manually. I wrote test cases. I was manually putting um, those test statements and then checking the response from the AI chatbot. But I felt like if this process could be automated, and I looked online, and after some time, I found a framework that can be used. Um, it's easy to use, but it has its limitations. We'll discuss about them later. But for now, what we can see is how to use it, what else areas it can be used in, and how can you tweak it according to your needs, right? So we'll immediately start with it. The framework that we are going to use is called Deepeval. So Deepeval is basically a LLM testing framework. You can use it for testing your AI chatbots also. So basically what it does is it uses a LLM server. It could be OpenAI or it could be a locally hosted LLM server, and it will evaluate the responses that you get. The Why we are using an LLM, right? So the problem with any AI chatbot is the responses are not fixed. The language changes. For instance, let me search for um, our flights to Nepal uh, available from Delhi. So yeah, you should get confirmation here as in it should be a positive response here that yes, flights are available. But when I run the same query next time, what we'll see is the response will not be the same. Uh, yeah, this time it failed, but yeah, we can run it again and see what is the response here. Yeah, so you see the response is a lot different, but both are confirmations, both are in the affirmations, right? So how do we test something like this? What uh, we can do with Deepeval is it will only get you the specific data that you need, right? You can test it based on that, and then you can ignore the different phrasing of the responses that you are getting, right? So that whatever makes sense to you, that is tested. So we'll just uh, dive right into it. So what we'll do is we'll set up a local Python environment, virtual environment first, right? So what I'm gonna do is Python 3. I'm going to set up a virtual environment here, and I'm going to call it Deepeval test. Let's copy this. Let's activate this so that I can source VNV bin wait. Oh, sorry, not VNV. This has to be my environment that I've created. This is done. The next thing we have to do is just install Deepeval. So I'm going to do a pip install here. Deepeval. So this should not take much time. Should be very quick. So the LLM servers that we're going to use, which there is a variety that we can use based on our need. We'll look at those options once we get to that part. But for now, setting up the DB is what we need to do, and we'll get to it once we have the absolute necessary need to explain it. Till then, we can just assume that how things are going to work out, and we're going to try and set up things before we get to the LLM part. So Deepeval is installed, right? So the next step is these are fixed steps. I'll just create a new file here for my test, right? I'll call it test deep eval. Got it that, and I'm going to import these libraries here. So from deepeval I want to import assert test. So if you're familiar with PyTest, this will be very easy. It will be a walk in the park, and otherwise the learning curve is really low, and it's very easy to start automating. As you'll see, isn't it's very easy. It's child's play. Next thing we need to do is deep eval. What we need to get is the test case part, so that we'll write test cases in a specific, as in it should identify what kind of test case that we are running, right? The other next thing that we need is the kind of metric that we're going to use for evaluation. So there are different types of metrics available. There are some inbuilt ones. They are something that you can use, which are available. But for GEVAL, what we are going to use here, you can have your own customized metric, and you can say you can add different parameters there, and you can customize it in a way so that it fits your need. So we'll get to it while we are creating that metric, and for now we are going to use GEVAL here. Okay, now we need one more last thing, which is we need the test case parameters here, right? So what I'm going to use as part of my test case parameters is what I need to specify. I'll need to specify per test case whether I want to use the input, I want to use, as in I'll definitely be using the output, but the actual output, but what is the expected output I also need to use. So those all params will be defined separately for my particular metric that I'll be creating. Now let's get down with creating the metric, right? So we'll call it the correctness metric. You can name it anything you want. I'll just, because it's a custom one, I'll just name it this GEVAL, right? So we'll be using GEVAL, and this is the different parameters that we need to provide here. Name first, so we'll call it correctness metric, or we'll just call it correctness. The next thing that we need to do is we need to specify the evaluation steps, right? So I'm not going to fill in anything right now in this. So we're going to look at it later once we come back to it, once we have our use case defined, what all things we want to test. Then we'll come to this part, evaluation steps, and then the next part is the model that we're going to use, right? So this also, we'll get back to it once we specify what kind of model that we're going to use. The next thing is evaluation params. Evaluation params define what all params that we'll be using for evaluation. So what we are going to do is these params that we had defined, we need to define it here. And what we're going to say is we're going to use actual output, as well as we're going to use the expected output here. So we're going to use these two params here. The next thing we need is the threshold. So threshold, basically the value for any test case, for any test result, the value lies between 0 and 1. So you can put any value between 0 and 1 here, but what you want is that if you want a test case to be stricter, it needs to adhere a lot strictly to the params that you're specifying here. You keep a higher value, otherwise you keep a lower value. So what I'm going to put here is 0.8 here for now. We'll see. You can change it according to your needs later. And one more thing that we're going to add here is the verbose mode. We need the verbose mode here so that we can evaluate the results for now. You can change it later as per your need. Next thing we'll come up to, so this is done. The metric we've created. We'll come to the evaluation steps later once we're talking about, and the model later once we're talking about what we are going to test and what we're going to use to test, right? So the next step is just like creating a test case by what we do in PyTest, right? So we'll call it test something, right? So for now we'll just call it test something, right? And what we have to do is here we have to write, let's say we call it a test case. So this is what we're going to use for our testing, and it is a LLM test case, That's what it is. So test case will need different parameters here. So one thing which we are not using as a param here, but we are still putting it so that we are able to identify the test case. So let's say the use case here could be that you want to you place an order and you want to cancel an order, right? So what do you do in that scenario? As in, you want to talk to an AI chatbot and you want to inquire that if there is a 0% cancellation policy, or is the company charging something for cancellation of order, right? So something like that query that you want to have, right? So what we can say is the query is like, what is the uh, cancellation charge on the order? So this is the kind of input that there can be, right? So then your expected output could be uh, something like on the lines of you can say the cancellation charge is 5%. Simple as that. You expect uh, the AI chatbot to return something like this, and then what do you want as part of the, as in uh, the actual output? I'm going to put a dummy output here, but what you will be doing in actual use cases, you will be hitting some API, or you will be using the front end, using a WebDriver to get the data from the chatbot or from the interface, whatever you have. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dummy data here, which should the evaluation should happen with this, right? So what I'll put is the order can be cancelled with a cancellation fee of 5%, let's say, of the order amount, right? So this is the kind of information you're getting from your chatbot. So yeah, so we're done with this. The next thing that needs to be done is just the assertion. So assert test. What do we need here? The test case that we created, right? And the correct the metric that we are going to use. So which is the correctness metric here. Yeah. So our test case is done. So there are two things required here: the model and the evaluation steps, right? Now let's get to the model part. Now, the way we are going to verify this is we are going to use a local LLM server to verify the output that we are getting. And for setting up a local LLM server, the software to use is Ollama. It works well. What you can do is you can go here, you can download Ollama, right? And once you download Ollama, you can run this command here, Ollama run. And what I want to do is I have already established a particular LLM model for myself here, so I'm going to use the same. We look at the others while this installs and see what is being used for what purpose, right? So this is pulling the very first one. Let's look at the models here. So models that are available here are basically different kind of models based on the needs. So what you can see is the Quen 2.54 coder is for code specific models. So it will give you code generation, code reasoning, and code fixing. Uh, then you can have some basic LLM models. Then you can have models that support multiple languages, right? For instance, if you look at something like so Starcoder is for 80 programming languages. Then there is Llama 2 Chinese. This is Chinese dialogue ability and all those things. You have Aya that supports 23 languages. So based on your need, you will be using the model. Also, what you can see here is these numbers: 0.5b, 1.5b, 3b, 11b, 90b. So these are basically the different parameters that are available as part of these LLMs models. Uh, Parameters means the decision points that are available as part of the model. We don't need a higher number for our for our usage here, because Two things. One, it is very resource intensive. Second thing is, this is a very small thing that we're using it for. Not required. That's why what we're using here is the 3 billion version, and the 3 billion parameter should be enough for our use case here. I tried using 7 billion version here, but it made my machine really slow. So I don't want to make the same mistake. I don't want you to make the same mistake, and a 3 billion version is good enough for a regular machine. So this is getting installed. So what this command is going to do is going to get that LLM model and also start a server with it. So what we can do is, now that we know we are using, we are going to use Llama 3.2. So we can replace the model here. Right, save it, and now once this runs, we'll check it once, and once we've checked it, we are going to tell Deepeval what we're using. Type a message here, hi, and I get a how can I assist you today. So it's working. Our server is up and running, right? So what I want to do is, I want to tell Deepeval that we're going to use Llama 3.2. So there's a command for it. I'll run that command directly. I'll also put it as in the description below, so that you can use it directly. Right? So I'm going to run it. Deepeval is going to tell me, now you're using a local LLM model for testing. Okay, so now this is done. What we want to check is, the only thing left is the evaluation steps. Now, what is the evaluation step, and how do we use it here exactly? So what I want to do is, evaluation step is basically what we have to do is, we have to specify the different things that your expected output and the actual output will be compared on. And this is like as simple as giving somebody instructions on what to do. You'll, like the way you'll be telling a regular human what needs to be done in terms of comparing the expected output and the actual output, and we're going to write it in the same way, right? So what we're going to say is, the numbers in expected output should be exactly same as in actual output. Simple as that. That's what I'll tell a human testing this, right? Next thing we want to do is, we'll tell them heavily penalize if numbers are not the same. So next thing is, hey, consider it fail if the numbers are not matching. It's basically you're telling them, right? So numbers heavily penalized means, so the score that gets generated, right, the one that we use for threshold, it will get affected if the numbers are not the same, right? The next thing that we have to do is simple. We just have to run this command here, and it will work, right? So let me run Deepeval test run running, and my test is running. Oh, I did not save the evaluation steps. Sorry, run it again. Now I'll use the evaluation steps, and it says yes, my test case is passing. My score is 0.8, my threshold is 0.8, and my score is passing, right? Now, okay, this could be a fluke. It gives me some other reasons also. It says the actual output contains cancellation. I'm so sorry. Well, that must have bothered you all for like the last 15 minutes. I'm so sorry about it. But yeah, finally we got it. So let me just run it again and see. It says wording is slightly different, right? Which is fine. I'm okay with that, right? So that's why it's not heavily penalized. Now let me test it out, right? Let's say I make it 10%. Will it fail? Let's see. I've asked it to heavily penalize it, but the numbers are not the same, and it fails. So it says the number is not matching, and that's why the score is zero. 0.2, right, which is really low, and that's why it has failed. So as you can see here, this is a very simple way of testing your uh, LL models, or if you're testing it a chatbot, you can have multiple metrics configured here. You can use those metrics as part of test cases. You can add multiple asserts here with different metrics. Also, you can write different test cases with different metrics. So I hope this is helpful. If you want me to discuss more on how to test um, the AI chatbot projects or LLMs, then we can discuss it later. Just let me know. Thank you all.